and a warm welcome from both Erica and myself to this webinar on rethinking risk in aerospace and defense. And the subtitle we gave it is Moving from Checklist to Strategy. And maybe we start with a brief introduction. Erica, you want to go first?
Sure, thank you, Shahab. So my name is Erica Trujillo. I'm currently the managing director of SEIA and Descartes. We are a data analytics company that focuses on trade compliance, risk assurance. And I like to say that I have a background, we'll say the 360-degree view of international trade. So I've started my career at the US Department of Commerce as an international trade specialist. I've then been in industry as a trade compliance officer myself in the German automotive industry. I've also been a lawyer and a consultant for these topics. So I guess it was a time that I ended up in innovation. So with that, I'm really happy to be presenting today with Shahab, who I've had the pleasure of actually presenting in person with many times before. And we're super pleased to be collaborating with Descartes for this webinar. So Shahab.
And I look very much forward to this presentation together with Erica. So my name is Shahab. I'm heading up the Global Trade Intelligence pillar of Descartes for the EMEA and Asia Pac region. And well, my background is primarily in sales and sales management across different industries. And for the last few years, I've been having the pleasure of further developing my knowledge and connecting the dots, of the different industries that I've been to now the topic of compliance, and actually understand ultimately why were there all these complications when I was in actual industry. So with that, moving over to the agenda and the topics that we will be covering. And maybe, Erica, you had a few sub points that you wanted to mention for each of these agenda items. Obviously, the introduction is already done. The next area is going to be the whole question of where is aerospace and defense landscape sitting today. And Erica, you had a few comments on these points.
Yeah, so I think our goal today is really going to be to understand, on the one hand, we've seen this massive rise in the defense industry in the past few years, particularly in Europe. And at the same time, we are seeing also this kind of growing demand for trade compliance. But how do we then take that need for greater trade compliance capabilities and actually move that forward in a defense industry that does face, we'll say, rather significant challenges for digitalization and modernization in this kind of compliance space. So this is really going to be our challenge for today, is to look at, what is our current circumstances? What are these digitalization challenges that are very unique for the aerospace and defense industry? And then go through really some of the solutions that Shahab and I see on a daily basis to approach either your operations or your assurance layers in this industry.
Perfect.
Yeah, so with that, just to kind of set the stage now, I'm sure all of you who actually are joining from aerospace and defense industry companies are at least as aware of these trends as we are, if not more so. But what we have seen in the past years, primarily as a result of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, among other geopolitical topics, is a refocus on investment in the defense landscape. So we've seen, of course, huge rearmament cycles being driven by the geopolitical instabilities. We've seen that we've kind of also hit this critical time period where some of the technology that was sitting in the national defense space was aging out. So for a number of reasons, we're seeing this huge convergence and focus on defense and aerospace. One of the things that's been most interesting for me personally has been to see the European investment like Diana really pushing forward innovation and technological superiority in the defense and aerospace environment. But just to kind of put this in context of numbers, we've seen, 2.7 billion here, which is the 2024 global military spending, which is a 9.4 increase from 2023. And this has been one of the steepest increases in defense spending since 1988, which, if we all go back to the Cold War, this makes sense. We've also seen that 60% of the global military spend is from the top countries being the United States, China, Russia, Germany, and India, which I think for those of us working in this industry is not particularly surprising, but it does also highlight which of these jurisdictions from a trade compliance perspective on both sides, we're going to see kind of a little bit more focus on needing to comply with US export controls. We're going to see higher enforcement and we'll say compliance guidance and expectations, especially from countries like China. So this is really, I think, putting into focus not only the rise of defense, but also to some extent the need for trade compliance. And finally, we are expecting to see a massive increase in the IT spending market within the defense industry. So I think this will also drive a lot of trade compliance challenges, but also opportunities. Thanks, Shahab. So that being said, as we start to see this kind of increase in focus on defense, focus on spending in defense, one of the gaps that I often hear in the narrative around this kind of investment discussion is the complete lack of chat about trade compliance itself. And I think this was very apparent to me the last couple years when I was attending the Munich Security Conference. There was numerous people presenting on, for example, the European Diana investment, really pushing to say, hey, we must have technological superiority from an aerospace and defense perspective. We must have this strategic advantage in this industry. But if we don't also then have trade compliance with an ability to keep pace with that investment, we don't really have an advantage if adversaries get the same technology 6 months later. So I think this is really something where when we're thinking about the increase in the defense industry, we really need to be also refocusing to say, hey, if we actually want to protect the technological superiority that we are investing very heavily in, we also then need to be investing in our trade compliance capabilities so that we can keep up with the modern organizations that we are currently working in. I heard a good quote the other day. It was like, we're managing some of the world's most sophisticated technology with like 20th century approaches here, just because of some of the challenges that we'll get into in just a minute. So this is just something I want everyone to keep in mind as we push the defense industry forward. We also need to be the voices that are pushing trade compliance forward.